Ever been at a party and, someone mentions they speak Croatian?
Right.
And suddenly you're like, whoa, Croatian. That's interesting. Okay, maybe not your typical party conversation starter.
Sure.
But trust me on this one. Croatian has this whole hidden world, like, just waiting to be explored. It's so much more than just a language.
Oh, absolutely.
It's intertwined with history, politics, you name it. Even a bit of an identity crisis thrown in there.
You hit the nail on the head there. It really exemplifies how language and identity are inseparable. Like a single word can carry so much weight,
Exactly. So that's what we're diving into today, this fascinating world of Croatian. We've got this text file we're working with, packed with all these details about the language. And let me tell you, some of this stuff is seriously surprising. Like, did you know it's officially recognized in multiple places? Not just Croatia.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the official languages of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and even recognized in other regions too. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's back up a bit. Where does Croatian actually come from, like linguistically speaking?
Well, it all begins with the Serbo-Croatian language family.
Okay.
That's the broader group that Croatian falls under.
Right.
Although even that term Serbo-Croatian, it's a bit, how should I put it? Politically charged.
Ah, right. You mentioned that earlier. It's like one of those family dinners where everyone's pretending everything's fine.
Exactly.
But there's all this unspoken history bubbling beneath the surface.
Precisely. You'll find a lot of native speakers who, they have strong opinions about that term Serbo-Croatian, and for good reason. It gets into a lot of historical baggage. But to make things even more interesting, even within Croatia itself, there isn't just one Croatian. There are actually 3 main dialects.
3. Whoa. Okay. That's more than I was expecting. I mean, you'd think within one country, the language would be more, unified.
You would think, right. But it just goes to show you how much diversity you can have within a language, even within a relatively small geographic area. And historically, all these dialects were often just lumped together under that Serbo-Croatian umbrella,
Right.
which is where you get terms like Bosnian, Croatian, Montenegrin, Serbian.
Right.
Or BCMS for short.
BCMS, yeah. Bit of a mouthful, but I guess it's more accurate that way. So we've got these dialects all grouped together. As different as they might be, what led to that historically? So the text mentions these attempts to standardize Croatian way back in the 18th century. Like, people were already thinking about this stuff back then.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And there were these Croatian nobles, the Zrinski and Frankopan families. They were really pushing for this unified literary Croatian.
Interesting. So what were they, like, writing grammar books and stuff?
Not quite. Think more along the lines of The Siren of the Adriatic Sea.
Okay, now that's a title. That doesn't sound like a grammar book at all.
Right. These weren't just, dry academic exercises. They were creating engaging works. Stories, poems, you name it. There's this other one, Traveling Escort. Intriguing title, right?
It sounds it.
And it was all with this aim of showcasing the beauty and potential of a unified Croatian language.
So they were kind of like, I don't know, language influencers of their time.
Exactly. They understood that for a language to really flourish, it needs to capture people's hearts and minds, not just follow a set of rules.
That's true.
Unfortunately, their efforts were cut short.
Oh, what happened?
Well, let's just say 18th century politics got in the way.
Ah, right.
Executions, power struggles, the whole drama, not exactly the best environment for, promoting a unified language.
No kidding. So that was the end of that.
Well, not quite. The story picks up again in the 19th century with the Illyrian movement.
Right, the text mentioned that. What was that all about?
So the Illyrian movement, it was about so much more than just language. It was this whole cultural and political wave sweeping across the region. And language was right there at the forefront. They were pushing for a unified South Slavic literary language. This idea that, a shared linguistic identity could help bridge cultural divides.
I see. So where does Judevit Gaj fit into all of this?
Gosh. Now, he was a pivotal figure. He was the one who standardized the Latin alphabet for Croatian.
So Croatian uses the Latin alphabet because of him.
Exactly. It was a decision with huge implications, even now.
Wow, that's incredible. The ripple effects of decisions made centuries ago.
It really goes to show you, right? The interconnectedness of language, culture, history, it's all intertwined. And it brings us to what's probably the most intriguing part of Croatian, its relationship with Serbian.
Right, the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Because if I'm understanding this correctly, Croatian and Serbian are basically mutually intelligible.
Pretty much, yeah.
So why even have a separate Croatian language? That's the part that always throws me off. It's like they're practically the same, but not really.
Yeah, it's a complex situation.
So how do you explain that?
Well, it boils down to identity. Even if Croatian and Serbian are super similar linguistically, people emphasize the differences.
Because of the politics.
Bingo! It's a classic case of Ausbau languages.
Ausbau languages. Never heard of those.
It's basically when languages are almost the same, like you can understand each other and all.
Right.
But they're considered different for cultural and political reasons. Think British English versus American English.
Oh, okay, yeah. They sound alike, but they're each unique.
Exactly. And for Croatians, that distinction, super important, especially given their history. Like the text mentions this 1967 declaration.
Yeah, the one about Croatian literary language. What was the big deal with that?
It was huge. They basically drew a line in the sand, said, hey, Croatian is its own thing. Years of being lumped in with Serbo-Croatian, this was a pushback against that.
Wow. Makes sense. Then there's that 2017 declaration, right? About the common language.
Right. It's almost like a twist in the story.
So which is it then? Are they separate or not?
Well, that declaration, it acknowledges the shared history, but it still respects that they're considered distinct. It's more nuanced, like recognizing the family resemblance, but celebrating the differences too.
Finding a way to coexist.
Precisely. Languages don't always fit into neat little boxes. They can be connected and separate at the same time, shaped by history, but on their own paths too.
That's fascinating. And, speaking of paths, it seems like Croatian has really made a name for itself. I mean, it's an official language of the European Union.
Oh, yeah. And not just that. It's taught in universities all over.
Yeah.
U.S., Australia, you name it. There are even courses offered by embassies.
Wow.
That's how you know it's arrived.
Absolutely. So from those nobles back in the 18th century, writing those epic poems, to today, Croatian has come a long way.
It has. It shows you the power of language, how it connects with culture, identity, history. It's all intertwined.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. And hey, who knows? Maybe this deep dive will inspire our listeners to go on a language adventure of their own. There are so many fascinating stories out there just waiting to be discovered.
I hope so.